In the cold, dead silence of a forgotten valley, beneath a crimson moon that refused to set, two great armies gathered for war. On one side stood the creations of science, horrors sown from flesh and powered by lightning. On the other, the risen dead, bound by an ancient curse and the insatiable hunger of decay. This was the night the very earth would tremble. Caught between the thunderous march of Frankenstein's legion and the moaning swarm of the undead horde, the valley was called Ebon Hollow, a place so bleak that no birds sang, and even the wind dared not whisper. Atop a black tower of rusted steel, Dr. Victor Manley, the last descendant of Frankenstein's infamous line, watched his masterpiece unfold. His long coat whipped in an electric wind of his own, making, as he stared down at his army, 1,000 patchwork soldiers, their muscles and metal fused by the raw, untamed miracle of lightning. He raised his gloved hands to the roiling storm clouds above and shouted, his voice a crack of thunder itself, "Tonight we prove that science conquers death itself." As if on command, bolts of electricity crawled across the sky, striking great metal rods planted along the ground. His creatures roared in unison, a symphony of rage and power as life, raw and artificial, surged through them. Their eyes ignited with a pale blue glow, cold, steady, terrifyingly alive yet not alive at all. But across the field, the ground began to move. The dead earth cracked open, and from the fissures, skeletal hands clawed their way upward. Rotting corpses, their flesh hanging in ribbons, pulled themselves free from shallow graves. They were drawn by the scent of a challenge, by the intoxicating promise of conquest. Leading this ghastly procession was Hades, the god of the Underworld himself, a vessel of pure, dark magic. His voice, a chilling whisper, echoed through the valley like a dying wind. "You think your pathetic bolts can mock the grave?" The dead bowed to no man of science. Behind him, the zombie horde stretched to the horizon, a silent, endless, and utterly unstoppable tide of decay. They needed no orders, they carried no weapons. Their only drive was hunger. The two armies faced each other beneath the eerie glow of the blood moon. For a single, stretched moment, there was a profound silence. Then the first thunderclap ripped through the air. Lightning struck the field, and the battle for Ebon Hollow began. Frankenstein's monsters charged forward, a mechanical stampede of grinding gears and boots thundering through the mud. Their fists, like living sledgehammers, smashed skulls and shattered bone with brutal efficiency. Electric whips, crackling with captured lightning, lashed through the darkness, burning through rot and sinew. The zombies fell by the dozens, then the hundreds, but for every one that fell, two more seemed to crawl over their fallen comrades. They were a relentless tide, swarming the mechanical titans, climbing over them like ants, biting, tearing, clawing with desperate, mindless fury. One by one, the magnificent creatures of science began to vanish, pulled down beneath a roiling sea of gnashing teeth and rotting hands. From the safety of the opposing ridge, Hades laughed a sound that was cold and hollow. "Your strength is borrowed from a fleeting storm. Mine is forged in eternity." But from his high tower, Victor Manley simply smiled, pulled a single large lever. Yes. The ground beneath the swarming zombies trembled violently. Huge metal coils, hidden just beneath the mud, rose from the battlefield, humming with immense contained power. Tesla towers, long buried and forgotten, flared to life. An apocalyptic surge of electricity rippled through the valley floor, and thousands of undead corpses ignited like dry torches. For a breathtaking moment, the night turned into day. Ash and embers rained from the sky. Manley thought he had one. He lowered his arms, laughing triumphantly at the sight of the burning horde. But as the thick black smoke began to clear, his laughter died in his throat. Hades still stood, charred, smoking, but smiling a terrible knowing smile. He raised his arms, and from the smoldering ashes the dead began to rise again. But they were different. Each spark that had burned them had reanimated them anew. Now their bodies glowed with an internal blue, fire infused with Manley's own stolen energy. The tide of battle had turned in a horrifying instant. The monsters of science now faced their own lightning. Weaponized against them in the bodies of the electric dead, the battlefield erupted into a new level of chaos. Frankenstein's creatures fought against glowing zombies that simply refused to fall. Metal and flesh tore apart in a maelstrom of violence. The air, thick with the smell of ozone and blood, became unbreathable. Manly screamed into the storm, a sound of pure desperation and frantic disbelief. He scrambled to the very top of his tower, and with a final desperate roar, hurled the last switch. He was releasing the full, untamed charge of the storm directly into his army, a final gamble to overwhelm the enemy. A massive, blinding bolt of lightning struck the center of the battlefield. For a single heartbeat, the valley became pure white light, then silence. When the storm finally cleared and the light faded, the valley was still. The rusted tower was gone, vaporized. Was gone, and in the very center of the cratered battlefield, only one figure stood. A single, massive creature, stitched and burned, half mechanical, half decayed. Its eyes glowed faintly, one blue, one green, flickering like dying candles. It slowly looked at its hands. One was made of polished steel, the other of bleached bone. It spoke, its voice a haunting fusion of human and monster, of grinding gears and a dying groan. No more master, no more hunger, only me. It stumbled forward, disappearing into the lingering mist, the last of its kind. Neither a creation of science, nor a corpse of magic. The war of the undead was over. But something new, something terrifying had just been born, something the world was not yet ready to name. And beneath the crimson moon, Ebon Hollow returned to its cold silence. Until in the far, far distance, the faint sounds of two more armies began their inexorable march toward battle. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more dark fantasy and sci-fi sagas. We'll see you in the next one.